Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. More, hate less, read comics. It's Blake's Buzz Live.
Buzz, buzz, babies.
Buzz, buzz, babies. It's Saturday night. What are we doing here on a Saturday night? It's special. It's a special one-on-one Blake's Buzz Live. Mr. Jarred Luján is in the house, returning to the show. He was crazy enough to come back. Boy, do we appreciate you. We were catching up in the green room. Felt like old friends, old times. Like nothing had passed. Jarred, how you doing tonight, bud? I'm happy to talk to you.
I'm doing pretty well. It's been a good week. How are you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's Kickstarter's funded. Everybody's reading the new book. There's nothing to complain about, which is nice. I'm sure we could find something if we dug deep, but I mean, on the surface, like pretty good. Like you said, pretty good week for everybody in the Jarred Luján fan club.
Yeah, and I'm we had such a big response for Crash and Troy. Even what's up, Johnny? Even A Wave Blue World was kind of taken back by it, and it's just I'm very grateful for how big of a response. Like I said, and I've talked about 100 times, the book's been 5 years in the fucking making. I was ready to have it out, ready to show what we've been doing, that we made something dope. It's very cool that it's finally out there. At least first part, right? The first part's out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess you don't want to get too excited. Like don't jinx anything. Yeah. David Hazan's in the house. David and Johnny, thank you for stopping in. Buzz, happy to have you. Happy to see you. Happy to see you.
David is the most beautiful man in Australia.
He's wonderful. He's a gem. He's a fucking gem.
And gorgeous. Fuck me. I'm sorry, David. The most beautiful person in Florida. I'm a piece of shit. I'm sorry.
He'll forgive you. He's pretty chill and beautiful and fucking talented. Nottingham doing well. Anyways, David, sorry, we're not here to talk about you tonight, David. You gotta chill. We're here to talk to Jarred. Jarred, man, like we mentioned, Crash and Troy is hot to trot. Not just the shops are depleting in their stock. The warehouse stock is dwindling. Like there's not much of Crash and Troy left. So that's why it's important to pre-order books, folks. We try and tell you. We tell you every damn week. We post the codes for you. We post the links. We do everything we can to get you guys to pre-order books, and it's I get it. We're all set in our ways, but pre-order your goddamn books. It's not that hard.
I had so many friends that were like, "I'm on the hunt," and I was like, "Why? You should have just pre-ordered it, like I told you. You wouldn't be on the hunt."
I remember, I know I said we weren't here to talk about David, but I guess he is the president of the Jarred Luján fan club. So I remember like when people were basically fighting in the streets for Nottingham because like shops were only getting like a couple issues of it. The only reason I was able to get a first print of #1 is because I won a contest from Mad Cave. And I got a poster and a first print of the comic, but people were so fucking mad that they couldn't get this book. And Mad Cave, even they were on Twitter. They were like, guys, no one's ordering it. If you want the book, pre-order it. And I was like, anyway, it's crazy. Yeah, I did pre-order it and was able to get all the prints, all the issues. I didn't have to fight anybody. I didn't have to leave my fucking house, man. Like I got my comics mailed to me. I was like during the COVID weirdness, baby. Like, so anyways, pre-order your comics and make sure you pre-order Crash. It's 4 issues, right? As planned right now, 4-issue mini. So yeah, 2, 3, and 4, get them on your pull list, folks. Otherwise, like it's too good and everybody's gonna buy it, and then you're gonna be at the shop fucking crying, begging for 25-cent tissues because you couldn't get your fucking comics that everybody else got, and sucks for you. Like that's what you gotta do. Quit crying, pre-order your comics.
And I only get so many comps.
Speaking of comps and stuff, are you picking up any are you going to any con appearances or anything in the next while? Or are you still kind of staying out of that part?
I am trying to go to NYCC. I am not super optimistic at this point. But Melissa Mesados, who does some comics PR, she promised me a stick and poke tattoo if I made it to NYCC. So I'm trying. But other than that, man, it's just like I was gonna go to San Diego, right? I was like geared up to go, and then I had to buy 4 tires, and I was like,
yeah, right.
all right,
Shit always
there goes
happens.
that.
Yeah, man, I know how that goes. Like, I can't remember what happened to me when I bought the new microphone. I spent all my tax money on like, not all my tax money. I spent most of my tax money on comic books, but then I bought the new microphone, and then something stupid happened. Like part of the computer broke or fucking, I don't know, something dumb happened. But yeah, life always does that for you. You know, it's like you bet on yourself, right? You invest some money. Like, I'm gonna buy this new microphone, or I'm gonna buy a plane ticket to San Diego, right? And then 4 tires blow out, or whatever happened, like the dog gets sick or something stupid happens.
Yeah. I was like a week away from buying my SDCC stuff. I had saved the money and everything, and then I had a tire blow out, and then another tire on my way to. I swear to God, it must have been on the way to the tire shop. I had a nail in the sidewall, and I was like, "All right, well." And they were like, "Yeah, this other tire isn't really worth shit, and it doesn't make any sense to buy 3 tires." So I just bought a 4, and I was sad, but I was there in spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like everybody had a really good time, but I know a lot of people didn't get sick, but I also know a lot of people came back and got sick. So that's another thing that sucks. Like right now, it's not the scary death sentence or anything that it used to be, right? But it's like, you get sick, you miss 4 or 5 days of work. Not all of us can afford to miss 4 or 5 days of work. And that just like that kicks you in the old nuts too and stuff. So what's David talking about here? He can't promise you a tattoo, but the most beautiful man person in Australia will buy you a drink and a meal. That's worth the price
Only
of
if
admission
it's
right there.
only if it's at Outback Steakhouse.
David just announced he's coming to the States for a few months. He's gonna do some cons, man. I would love to just like, I wish I had money to just like show up somewhere where he was and not tell him and like surprise him. Be like, "What's up, motherfucker?" He'd be like, "Oh my God." Like, when we talk, when we did our he's done 2 podcast episodes, dude, we talked each time for like almost 4 hours. Like, he kept being like, "Man, Blake, I gotta go right." I'm like, "All right, man." It's like 4 hours later, we're like, dude, we gotta get off the phone, man. I have so much B audio of David Hazan. Like, I could release like an audio documentary on David. I should do that. A Blake's Buzz Fincher. Anyways,
ride the
stealing your
Nottingham
spotlight.
Ride the Nottingham. No, ride the Nottingham success and be like, "Oh, I've got all this B audio. Like, here's the 8-hour unedited David Hazan conversation." Ride that shit to the top. That's what I'm planning on doing with David. Right, coattails.
Hey, yeah, man, you gotta take what you can get, right? You gotta networking is and writing networking's always been important. I mean, you got to be able to write, you got to be able to tell good stories, but knowing some people helps, and knowing good people helps even more. So yeah, it's that's why I always kiss all your guys' ass, man. That's what I'm riding the coattails too, baby. But yeah, it's anyways, great. Any comics are just full of great people. Jarred, we'll have to make sure next time David's on, you come on and steal the show for the first 10 minutes.
Oh, I will. I will make David fall in love with me.
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. He's actually, it's easy to fall in love with him. He's a charmer. He's an Australian charmer, that man.
I'm perfectly happy. For the record, I'm perfectly happy about talking about my comic friends for the whole time. I love all my comic homies.
I'll talk about David Hazan for an hour.
Yeah. And then we can work on Matt Harding after that hour, and we'll just go down the line,
No, yeah, Matt's awesome. Matt's awesome people too. It's speaking of your last Kickstarter success was with Matt, and also a damn fine book, which is why I feel like you've got a really good Kickstarter track record right now. You're fulfilling campaigns, right? And you're I appreciate your Kickstarter updates too, by the way. I appreciate how vocal, and that's part of the fun part. Even if it's you telling us like, "Sorry, it's a week late," but hey, this kind of like that, dude. That's why Substack's so hot right now. These fucking guys like drop a couple pages of a comic and then fucking write a journal entry for 2.5 pages. People are eating it up, paying monthly fees for it. You get that for free on Kickstarter. You back a campaign every week or so. They drop some words. But yeah, you've had Kickstarter success, and I know you were kind of stressed on this one. It went a little slower than you wanted. I mean, you're funded now, but it's a busy time on Kickstarter. How are you dealing with that and all the competition?
Well, I don't ever see anybody else as competition, right? Like I try not to have that mentality going into campaigns. Because at the end of the day, right, like the indie community is a community, and that's what I want to maintain. But I mean, obviously, like a year ago, we were in a different place. Like the entire economy was in a different place. Gas wasn't nearly as high, things like that.
Yeah.
And so I knew this one was going to be a little bit tougher. It was definitely a little bit more tough than I was expecting. But we're at 250 backers. I think we're going to break 300, which is my usual goal, is just breaking 300. Yeah, and I was definitely stressed, but Kickstarter has become its own beast. There's so much going on. Comics are a little bit more expensive than they were, than they are in a shop. So I get it. It's just it's one of those things that you kind of like, oh man, do I suck? Did everybody realize I sucked? Because I thought All the Devils Are Here was hot shit. I thought that was good shit, and now everybody maybe knows something that I don't, but but it doesn't. We got funded, and I'm excited. I'm excited that I really do think we're going to break 300 backers by the end of the campaign.
I mean, you got a lot can happen in 5 days, especially dude. The last 48 hours is always crazy. It's real crazy if you're not funded yet, right? It's like you get that like surge, and you're like, oh, but at least you don't have to do that. At least you're not last minute stressing. But yeah, I see you getting a big handful of backers here.
And we have like 300 people watching the campaign that haven't backed yet. So like we have like an army of people who, in the event that they decide they want to jump on, could jump on. But yeah, it's really been a campaign that's put a little bit of hair on my chest. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm just glad that it's funded. I'm glad it funded before the final 48, and now we just gotta ride this thing out.
And now this isn't a continuation, right, of the brother and sister. This is kind of a new story where I'm sure we'll have more Easter eggs and things to appreciate having read the first one. But for people that are listening that are worried if they didn't back the first campaign, this is a fresh shot, right? You can just dive right in.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you can get both books on the campaign, right? Like, it's not like you don't have that option. My wife would love that, as a matter of fact, because I got a bunch of boxes of Twin Blades here that she's always telling me I got to get rid of. But it's a book that is completely independent. What I'm doing with Twin Blades and what Julio and I are doing with Twin Blades really is, I think we're approaching it more as an anthology type series rather than any direct sequels and things like that. So I wanted to tell the story of Cinco de Mayo. I wanted to incorporate the Twin Blades in the larger history of Mexico. And fortunately, Julio was on board with that plan. And so we've brought it here. And now I'm super psyched. It's such an exciting book, really. Like, I'm really, really excited for people to kind of get this one.
Yeah. I'm excited to get it. I was excited to get the first one. I missed out on the campaign of the first one. I wasn't smart to Jarred yet. Like I didn't know what I was fucking missing. And I found out about it like at the last moment. I think everybody knows I'm poor half the time. So like I couldn't afford it. I didn't have any money. And then you did a deal afterwards, and you did like a free comic book day where you would mail like if a shop hit you up, and the shop I pulled from hit him up, and Jarred, I ended up getting a copy from Jarred for free comic book day, which was like, to this 36 years old, that was the best free comic book day I've ever experienced. Now, it's not like I've experienced 36 free comic book days, but in the time of my collecting, it was a solid free comic book day experience. And That shit blew me away, man. Like it was a really great, a really great book. You know, few extra pages than a traditional comic book shop at the shop, or a comic at the shop, right? About 30 pages, a little over 30 pages. Lots of story, lots of action, real quick, absolutely beautiful art. And it's the same team, right? All you guys are working on the new one together, right? Yeah, it's you can't find many prettier pages than these. Like colors, art, line work, it's all wonderful. Just the choreography and the action and how it flows, and the magical elements of the swords. It's just, oh man, it's so gorgeous. How when you were creating this, how do you work with your artists, right? And script like that when you have these like huge bombastic action scenes where it relies so much on like the visual, and then how these swords work, and the kind of glowing magical orbs in that are similar to like materia from Final Fantasy. But like, I mean, everything's like got its own like wonderfully deep, rich cultural spin on it. But like, how do you work with your artists to like produce these amazing scenes like this that take up so many pages and just wow, panel after panel?
So for the first Twin Blades and this one, right? There's pages where I write out exactly what I want to happen, and Julio and I work pretty well together. So he'll kind of just go and run with it. Steven, what's good, my dog? And so we kind of just work that way. But I also want artists to be able to kind of flex on those sequences. So I think the final fight scene in Twin Blades, I completely took my foot off the gas and gave it all to Julio. I was like, this is where this starts and this is how it needs to end. Everything from that point to this point, you can do whatever you want. And so he just ran with it, and he did some really great pages that were really really fun, and some of the best work in the book. So I really try and give a little bit and take a little bit, right? Like I really want to, when it's really important to me on an action sequence and it matters, then I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. If I have a specific imagery in mind, if not, then I want to do it this way. But if I don't, man, I want the artist and the co-creator to just pop off, like just blow it up. And fortunately, Julio works well with that, as do I. Not all artists do, right? Like some artists are. There's been times where I've left a page where I'm like, hey, just do whatever you want. And an artist will be like, no, I don't want to do that. Just tell me what you want. And I'm like, cool, like, oh, cool. I just wanted to give you a chance if you wanted to, right? Because sometimes people want to do that. So yeah, fortunately, that Julio works well with that. I gave him a couple of pages in this one to do whatever he wanted as well, because I want Julio to be able to flex his muscles on what he wants to do, right? Like, not it doesn't always have to be, if it's just a fight and I don't have anything story driven narratively in there, then yeah, man, take the wheel. Let's see what you can do. Let's see what you want to do, how you want to tell the scene, and it's worked out pretty well for us, I think.
Nice. And it worked out well, and all the devils are here too. And because you and Matt have a good working relationship as well. And it kind of, I talked to you guys for that one during that campaign, as was when you were on the show before, and it seemed like you guys just kind of knew what each other wanted. Like there was like you didn't have to communicate much between each other to see what each other wanted, like in the vibes and the art and what was going on in the comic.
Yeah, I mean, Matt is like one of my closest friends after working in All the Devils Are Here. Like Matt and I have I'm trying to think of the right words, but it's like a storytelling sensibility that we both share. Like we both share the direction and stuff. So yeah, there were sequences in All the Devils Are Here where I let Matt do whatever he wanted. There were scenes and pages where Matt came back and said, "Hey, I don't think this works, and this is why. I want to do this," and I'm like, "Let's do it." Um, so I was really fortunate. I've been fortunate every single time I've worked with an artist, because most of the time it's a great experience. I've never had an experience so far where we wanted to kill each other. But like, yeah, Matt and All the Devils Are Here. All the Devils Are Here is such a trippy, intense book that you kind of have to give a little bit of leeway to the artist to be able to tell it, because I can't always capture that in my script,
Yeah.
what it is. And so, but no, he's great. At one point I put, it's like think of this like a Salvador Dali painting. Um, and it was the scene where we first see, the second scene where we see JC's sister, and he crushed
Mm.
it. It was just so good. And yeah, I'm just yeah, I think Matt and I have a very unique relationship when it comes to not just being friends, but being mutual storytellers. I think that we have a very unique connection, and we both have very similar tastes. And we know which direction we want to go in, and there's a lot of trust between us. So he just goes and just does his thing sometimes, and it's almost always good. But Matt can do fucking everything, right? Like, and that's
Yeah.
part of what makes Matt so great, is that when Matt's working on a page, he's working on it as a writer and an artist and a colorist and a letterer. Matt has a really big vision for what the book is going to look like when he's done drawing it. And I think that's really incredible, right? Like, I think Matt's one of the most talented people in comics, period. End of conversation, right? Like, he can do everything, and he can do everything well. And he just has such a huge vision of what he's doing with the comic when he's sitting down and he's working on it, and executes it well. And just a phenomenal talent. And I'm very grateful to have worked with Matt. I'm very grateful that we are hopefully going to work on something again soon. But yeah, he's just a monster. He's dynamite.
I sure hope so. I was gonna say, well, before Chuck's in the house. What's up, Chuck? How you doing? Speaking of talents, we got a man. It always freaks me out when comic creators watch Blake's, because I'm always advertising it, thinking like, nerds are gonna pop in, like people that read comics, and a lot of like pros watch my show and like pop, and I'm always like, what are you doing here? Don't you have shit to do? Like,
Bad news. Comic creators are nerds.
But yeah, it's that All the Devils Are Here was so special. It really surprised me how emotional it was. And you guys told everyone that. You were like, look, it's very like in the depths of hell and crazy and based in horror, but there's some really hard-hitting feels in there. And it's, for people that haven't read it, sucks for you, honestly, because it's really good. But for people that didn't get the campaign, or for whatever reason, like, it's about that we're exorcising demons and stuff, but there's some demons inside a guy who's suffering from dementia, right? And we find out that, well, I'm not going to say why he sold his soul, but we find out, like through traveling through his torment and his mind, like the of forgetting like the one you love, right? And like, what is it? What's that line where oh God, it was so fucking romantic and beautiful. It's like, I remember what made her laugh, but I don't remember what her laugh sounded like. And I was like, dude, it was like drop kicked right in the guts. Just like, oof. Like there was some big moments in that comic book that knocked the wind out of you. And like when you're not expecting it, like we're demon hunting, we're fighting demons, we're combing through memories to like, figure out how to free this guy's soul. And it's with Matt's art and your plot beats and stuff, like it's moving at a breakneck pace, and so it's crazy the few moments where you halt time and narrative to like hyper focus on these big emotional pieces, which it's crazy because you wouldn't think you would do that, right? You wouldn't think it fits in the vibe until you experience it, and it really does. And that, like that goes back to you, man. You're a really strong writer. You get what the comic book medium can do, and not just like what you can see, but how it can make you feel. And all your comics do that. You always hit us with like some really intense, easily relatable emotion that we can all like latch onto, and in that kind of ability, like become a part of your story. And I think that's why your comics are so strong. Like that, for me anyway, that's what I love about your comics, is how you like make me part of it through my feelings. And I'm just like, I feel like all fucking vulnerable and shit when I read your comics. And the way you advertise them, you're like, I'm giving it's Mexicans with swords, and we're giving all the Mexican swords. It's gonna be amazing. And it's like, yeah, that sounds really amazing. But then you like bring in all this fucking culture and all this like history and like all these elements, and then also just really nail this like brother sister relationship. Obviously, I've switched back to twin blades. We were talking about all the devils are here. I'm always all over the place. I'm sorry, but I mean, you just do that so well, and I know you have great artists helping you do that. But I mean, these are elements of like strong scripting that like I do have to like really say like, yes, you're creative. Your people that are working on this with you are super talented, but so are you. Like you are a really solid writer, and I mean I think that like even fucking DC noticed that, right? Like you were I mean we could say that, right? You were part of the Milestone Initiative, and obviously I was going to ask you about that just because it's so cool, and they're trying to bring all that back, and you fucking got sick on the way out there, right? You got COVID.
Yeah, I got COVID, but I mean, DC was awesome. First of all, thank you for all of that nice shit. I don't want to get too far without being grateful for that. Like, you know, I work really hard to make all of my comics emotional because I believe that strong storytelling comes from a personal place. And every time you read one of my comics, there is a good chance that there's some part of me personally dealing with something or reflecting on something um, in my life. I was doing a Twitter Spaces about Twin Blades, and somebody brought up the fact that I do a lot of familiar relationships, and I'm like, yeah, it's because I was a fuck up for a really long time, and and those I kind of reflect and look back, and I'm grateful for the relationships I have with my family now. But yeah, but like DC Milestone, I flew out to Burbank to meet Jim Lee and Dennis Cowan, Reggie Hudlin, and the people behind DC and the people that keep the gears going. Um, and it was a really great experience. I did get COVID, and I was stuck in a hotel room for fucking 7 days, and that sucked. But DC was really cool about it. They made sure I still had access to everything uh, at the summit. There we go. They made sure I still had access to everything at the summit. I still got to meet plenty of great people, and I'm grateful for that. It was a really good experience. It was a really good learning experience, um, and it's nice to be reaffirmed in that way, right? Like writing is a really difficult gig,
Yeah.
and like I was talking about earlier, right? Like sometimes when I'm writing Twin Blades and it's not funding, and I'm like, oh man, maybe I'm a piece of shit. But to get the recognition from DC and um, to get some of the outreach that I've had in the last year has been really something else, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for anybody who takes a chance on me and my books, and especially me as a writer. And it's just very cool. But DC was great. I hope I get to do something with them down the line. But if nothing else, it was a really good learning experience. And I got to meet like 23 of the greatest people of all time. So I don't have anything to complain about. I did get to meet Dennis Cowan, who is like the coolest human being on the fucking planet. Like just OG thug shit all the time. I love Dennis. I want to be Dennis when I grow up. And just the coolest guy alive. He is I'm going to tell the story. I don't know if I've told the story anywhere else, but um and I don't know if I'm supposed to tell it, but I'm going to tell it because it's not it's but Dennis, the first night of the summit, right? Like we're all in business casual because they told us to be in business casual. We're meeting a bunch of really fancy people that work for Warner Brothers in DC and stuff like that. Um, it's going super well. I'm having a good time. I'm drinking a couple beers, which California beers are not super good. Shout out Shinerpock, the national beer of Texas. And so they like drilled into us like, hey, make sure that you're dressed nicely because you're going to be meeting like fancy people. And I was like, okay. And Dennis Cowan showed up right? And they were like, he's not even supposed to be here, right? Like, he's not supposed to be doing anything for this until tomorrow. So Dennis shows up. He's in flip flops, sweatpants, a t shirt, and a Jackson, Mississippi hat. And he shows up. He's talking to everybody in the initiative, right? And he's making us all feel real special. I felt super bad. I was talking to this guy who does advertising for Warner Bros. And I was like, dude, I'm super sorry, but that's fucking Dennis Cowan. I have to go talk to him. And I was like, I really am sorry. I'm not trying to be a dick. And he was like, oh no, it's okay. And I'm like, no, like that's like a living legend, you know? So I go and I introduce myself. And then Dennis, who again is not supposed to be here, uh, gives a speech. Just grabs the microphone and gives a speech. And it's a very rousing speech. It's a good speech. And I was like, this guy fucking rules. Like, he just shows up in sweatpants and a t-shirt. Some of these people are in suits, right? And he just shows up and he's just like gives this speech about how grateful he is that everybody showed up in the initiative. He's really happy to see everybody and he thinks that we're the best and he believes in us and he wants us to do well and then bounced, right? Like he hung out for a while with us. Like everybody cleared out and it was just us and Dennis and Reggie. Reggie showed up after that. And they just sat there and talked to us for like an hour and a half.
Dude,
And
that's so cool.
it was insane. Very, very crazy experience. But yeah, Dennis is very, very cool. just the definition of cool.
He seems like like a really cool dude. Speaking of cool people, you promised me comics in the house. Thanks for tuning in. David wants to remind us that yes, right, comic creators are nerds. I did know that. I want everybody to know that I was pretty sure you guys were nerds. I mean, some of you are rock stars too, but you know, it's a good blend. How did the DC Summit thing happen? Like, did you like submit a proposal and like was it like MTV's Real World? Did you like shoot a video of yourself and you're like, my name's Jarred Luján, I'm from Texas?
I wish that was the process, right? Like you had to fill out an application and then you had to do write like 3 essays pretty much.
Okay.
Right. And then I'm sorry.
You're good.
A sample script. So I had to submit a sample script.
Oh, so it was like a writing contest. Like you won a writing contest.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we had to do an interview. And then they told us the second interview was going to be the final one, whether or not we're going to make it, right? And then it turned out that the second interview was them telling us that we got in. And so
oh, cool.
They surprised us. But yeah, it was wild. It was sincerely crazy to have had that experience. But I did not. I have this thing, right? Like where I have to try, right? Like it's not even. I did not think I was going to get accepted. I just had to do it because I was like, man, fuck it, you know, like
yeah.
I believe in my work. I believe in what I'm doing. I just got to give it a try. And then next thing I knew, they were telling me I was in it, and then I was flying out to California, and I was like, fuck, like this is real, you know. But it was a wild. But I'm very grateful for all of that. It was crazy, but I'm grateful.
So yeah, I mean, you've had I mean, more now we can say more good than bad, but you've had an intense couple years, man. Like it's when people say life is a roller coaster, you can officially like raise your hand and be like, excuse me, I can tell you about the roller coaster. Like I can tell you about the ups and downs. And I'm glad it's been more, what is good in the roller coaster metaphor? Because it's like, uphill's not the fun part, it's the downhill, but downhill's usually negative. I don't know how this metaphor works.
I fucking hate roller coasters. I hate roller coasters. My wife and I went to Vegas one time and she made me get on one and I thought I was gonna shit my pants and she still makes fun of me for it. Yeah, I think the uphill is supposed to be the good part, right? But yeah, on a roller coaster, downhill's fun.
Yeah, that's the part you want. Huh?
Metaphors.
Whoever thought of that shit ain't getting invited to the Milestone Summit. That's for
Yeah.
damn sure.
Yeah, that guy doesn't get to go to California and get COVID.
So hypothetically, say I'm not sure if you guys like pitch. Well, I'm sure there was like some workshop, or I would assume there was like some workshopping pitch stuff going on. But say you did this Milestone Summit and you write this little thing, you write something for DC and it blows their mind. DC comes to you, they say, Jarred, we want you to do something, man, whatever you want. Like, like where would you like DC to put Jarred Luján's name on the cover? What are you asking for if they gave you a chance?
If it's the Milestone universe, I really want to write Tech Nine.
Okay.
If it's DC at large, I fucking want Bane. I want Bane. I have plans for Bane that I'm not going to say on the podcast because I want to. That's my secret pitch. But I want Bane something fierce. I want Bane or I want Diablo, but I really want Bane.
Nice.
And I think I can take both characters in a new direction. I think I can take both characters and pay homage to their history in DC, which is what I think good big two writing is it's fresh directions without pissing on the tradition. And then I'm not trying to say that like anybody who wrote Bane didn't do it right. And I'm not that fucking guy, but I think that I can do something fresh and new with those characters that hasn't been done yet, and I would love the chance to do either of those. So if DC called me, that's where I would be at. I would be like, I want Bane. I want Bane super bad, and I know that that's really hard, right? Because like he's a Batman villain, and that's they only let Tom King and shit like that touch it, but.
Yeah, but they still, he's like an add-on to their Bat Saga, right? Like I don't think anyone's ever really came and like it sounds like what you want is like a 6-issue mini Bane miniseries or maybe like a 8 to 12 maxi series or something, but like you want a Bane book. Like it's not, he doesn't show up in a Bat run. You're like, I want to write Bane like from start to finish. Like panel 1, we're with Bane. In the middle of the comic, still with Bane. Into the so I would dig that. I love him, man. I love the different ways people take him, right? Like Tom King made him this like hyper intelligent, like just really menacing, very cerebral Bane on top of the physical too, right? I mean, he's always big and huge and violent, but like he brought in this like Bane was plotting. Like there was years of like Bane just plotting and like waiting for this moment to like really fuck over Bruce Wayne, and like passionately and perfectly. And then on opposite end of the spectrum, we've got like HBO's Harley Quinn, who has this like new goofy, like silly, not super smart, like a himbo Bane. And then that's also super fun and awesome. And also like kind of like, while making fun of it, also paying homage to like the Bane of comics. And so, yeah, it's I love seeing people take him in different directions. I think he's a very deep and intellectual, violent villain that would just be absolutely fun to write. And if you wrote him, I'd read the shit out of it.
Like, I think I loved Tom King's Bane, right? Like I thought he did, because like I don't pull Batman, but if you tell me Bane's on it, I'm like, there we go, let's do it. But I loved Tom King's Bane. But like the Bane that I love is his original appearance in Nightfall, and where he's not even the central person until like the very towards the middle of the whole thing. But he's plotting, he's menacing, and he's super intelligent. And when you look at his origin and the prisons, there's something to be said about prison systems, both abroad and American. But also, like, how does somebody this intelligent and this great fall down this path where his whole thing is this grudge with this bat? I think there's just like a lot to explore if he was the central character rather than the villain, right? And I mean, I don't have any beef with anybody who does Bane the way that they want to, but I would love. I think I have a lot to add to Bane, and yeah, he's super sick. I mean, nothing is ever going to be cooler to me than like it's in the middle of nightfall. All the villains have come out. Bruce comes home. He's taking off the cape and cowl. He's tired. He's been through the gauntlet, right? And then he sees you know, fuck Alfred unconscious. And then there's Bane, a 6'5" Latin thug in a tank top with an ab window. And then he beats the shit out of you. No homies. He rolled up by himself, beat your butler, and then broke your fucking back. Like, that's thug shit. I would,
Yeah.
yeah. He's great. And it's so, the way Nightfall does it is that he's like constantly, you see him, right? Like you see him, but he feels like, you know, he's in the background and Batman doesn't. And it
Yeah.
feels like just dready. Like you get to that point where Bruce comes home. He's been through this horrible experience of like 6 months. He gets home and Alfred's out. And then you're just like, oh, your heart drops because you know, like it's over. Like that's what I think is the best part of that whole thing is that when Bruce, when you read Nightfall, when Bruce gets home and Alfred's out and Bane's standing there pointing at him, you know it's over. You know Bruce isn't going to win. It doesn't matter that he's Batman. You know he's going to lose. And
Yeah.
I think that I don't think any other villain has ever posed that serious amount of dread inside of a reader's heart. Is that you know it's over. You know, there's always like, oh, Batman's got a chance. He's Batman. He's Bruce Wayne. He's a billionaire. He does ninja shit. But once you turn that page and you see it's Bane, you're like, fuck, it's done. It's over.
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that's like the high point of the character.
Yeah. There hasn't been many times where I'm just thinking of like the superhero icons. Like it's funny, like when you think of the Gauntlet, right? So like I just recently read Spider-Man Gauntlet, and right now I'm reading Mark Waid's Daredevil, and then and now thinking you got me thinking about Nightfall, and these are all like, you know, Wade's Daredevil was like a long cohesive event, right? Like going on 40 issues or so, and like Spider-Man Gauntlet went on for over 2 years, and it was just like all his iconic villains coming at him one after the other. And you know, every month that goes by, it's like a new arc, right? But Spider-Man is more depleted each time. He's just weaker. He's tired. He hasn't got to fucking sleep, right? And Nightfall was the same way. Like Nightfall was like a 1.5 year long event. I talk shit on big two events a lot now because you know what they do is they pack more comics into 2 months, right? So it's like 2 months cost you $200 if you want everything and all the tie-ins. Whereas before, man, there were a lot of tie-ins, but it went like 1.5 years. Like these were long, drawn out, really intense sagas. We don't really get that anymore. And now, and we're looking back on them now too. Like we're like, man, this was intense. Like just like when Bane broke Bat's back, man, like that didn't happen overnight. That was after months of him behind the scenes and like, you know, pulling, you know, bringing out all these villains and weakening him one battle to the next. And I kind of miss that, man. I like that I appreciate the shorter runs and like they give more people chances. Like, I mean, that's cool too, but I miss those like really long, intense sagas. And you know, it's kind of weird that like comics aren't doing that anymore. Now I know it's different on the indie scene because you know you're like sometimes you're lucky if you get 12 issues, right? Or 4 issues even or something. So it's not like, you know, if you were going around pitching Crash and Troy and you were like, look, it's 46 issues, right? And then I'm going to bring in this other universe for a tie-in in the middle, but we'll talk about that later. You know, it's you can't really do that, right? As an indie creator, but you know, like, I don't know. It's weird, right? Like comics from when we were younger and teens and kids, like as opposed to now, like they're still doing cool stuff, but just everything's like fat. It's like the gimme generation, you know, everything's got to be a 2-minute TikTok video.
Well, and like they're writing for trade, right? Like the events are for the trade paperback. And I think that's the way that we lost. I mean, Nightfall's 3 volumes, you know?
Yeah.
So I also think that we've lost a bit of that, but yeah, I'm bummed that we don't have something like that. But like the closest I can think of is House of X, Powers of X, right? Like recent memory, and House of X, Powers of X was dope. But even now, I'm seeing people that are like, I'm sick of this era of the X-Men, and I'm like, bro, like it's only like it's on like year 2 or 3, like it's cool, man. But yeah, it's rough. I miss long events, but at the same time, right, I'm one of the people that's like, let's do less.
Yeah.
Let's do less events with bigger stakes and longer runs and try that. But I'm also not like a marketing guy, right? Like I'm
Yeah. Same.
so maybe some marketing guy's watching this and he's like, well, this guy's a fucking idiot, and
Yeah.
that's probably fair. But like I'm like waxing poetic. But like even books like East of West, right,
Yeah.
which had a super long run. I think reading East of West in trade is a sin, a crime, and if you read it in trade, I hate you. But I also I don't hate you, but I also think like if you read East and West in single issues, I almost think that's a disservice. Like I have the 3 hardcover volumes.
The three beautiful hardcovers.
Yeah,
Same.
and I think that's the way to read it. I think that's the perfect way to read East and West because it's beautiful and it's encompassing and it's immersive and it just sucks you in. Um, yeah, man, I couldn't imagine. I think reading that in single issues or trade, but is a heartbreaker. Like it feels like you miss so much because there's so much going on in that goddamn book all the time.
Yeah.
What a
And
good book.
it's also like jealousy too. Like when or even with a show, right? Like when you were like, I had to watch that every Sunday for years. And you watched it all in 2 weeks. My mom is now my mom doesn't work, right? My parents are retired, but like she watched Game of Thrones when it aired, but apparently both my parents have like terrible memories. They like can't remember anything anymore. And I'm like, fuck, man. When I turn 50, am I gonna have to reread every comic I read? Like, I'm scared. Anyways, that's a different story. But my mom has been rewatching Game of Thrones for the new show starting, and like even though the end of Game of Thrones, like I wasn't a fan of it. I know a lot of people weren't, but still, like I remember like when it was good, when it was like the top show to be, and like in every Sunday, man, and like we would have people over and we'd have dinner. Like my family's Italian, so like everything happens on Sundays, and we always eat, right? You want the family there, you want to eat, and we would combine that with like whatever hot HBO show was on at the time. And so like, Sundays were like for Game of Thrones and Chiefs football, and we'd eat. And then Game of Thrones is over. And then you got to wait a whole fucking week. And then these people that are like new to the show, they're like, you watched like you stayed up for 28 hours straight and watched 2 seasons or whatever. You're like, fuck you, man. Like I had to pace myself. And I feel like good comics are like that, right? Whereas like you wait those 3 weeks, or God forbid there's a delay. What if you wait like a month and a half or two for the next issue? That happens a lot too. And so you wait these, like, it's not week to week, it's month to month. And you're just waiting and you're waiting. And then like, middle of the month, like whatever indie publisher, they'll maybe drop a couple pages and tease you. And you're like, oh, and then you finally get the next issue. And you do that for several years, and then later, there's 3 hardcovers, and you can buy them and read it in a weekend, and you're like, fuck you, man.
I think
you don't know.
I think the book that I read that I felt mastered the monthly format was Gideon Falls.
Oh yeah.
I thought Gideon Falls was I still think Gideon Falls is like a masterpiece. And I bought it in single issues. I don't even have trades of it, to be super honest, but actually I might have one around here somewhere. But it's such a, oh man, like the thing about it is that there was whole issues that were just double page spreads. And you kind of have to pour over it and absorb it, and it leaves you really like hanging on a hook in a bigger way than most. That's like the comic script writing rule number 1: end every page on a small hangover, end every issue on a big one. And Lemire and Sorrentino had such a mastery of that, but they did it in a way where you were like, I was reading Gideon Falls and I was like, I got no fucking idea what's happening, but this is awesome. Like, and it was like you're grabbing a piece of the puzzle and you're trying to put it together. But that was one of the only books where I was like, man, like I cannot wait until next month, right? Like I absolutely cannot wait. I think Saga has obviously done a really good job of that. Saga has emotional stakes that nobody else can get to, I don't think. But whenever I think of like mastery of the monthly format, it's Sorrentino and Lemire on Gideon Falls. That book was incredible. And I'm super glad. Like I tell people, like he did. Like it was an experience reading Gideon Falls month to month. Like it was a
Yeah.
whole different experience than just reading it. Oh, great comic. Loved
Yeah,
it.
I'm really digging their new stuff. Image just released an advanced release of 10,000 Feathers or so. I'm probably it's something Feathers. I just butchered that title, but that's the bad part about live. This is the podcast. I could look up the title and then like patch it in and fix it later. But now we're live, right? So when I talk out my ass, I talk out my ass. But no, I just read the new issue and then the Bone Orchard Passageway graphic novel, but it was the same way, man. I actually just read this last night. I was it was storming, and I was reading it on the tablet, and the art was beautiful, and I understood like what was happening from page to page, but like as a whole, right at the end of it, I was like, what happened here? Like, what am I supposed to take from this? And I know it's part of this bigger world they're making, and even though I was like majorly confused, I kept thinking about it, and it stayed in my fucking skull and bounced around like while I'm trying to go to sleep, and I'm still thinking of this and how some of the art made me uncomfortable. And that, man, that's what I love about comics and literature, as a whole. Like I love movies and series and stuff, but I love reading. I really do. And
Yeah.
I love reading comic books. And there's a deal about the dual narrator in comics, right? Where there's the prose narrator that we read, the exposition and the dialogue, and then there's the narrator that we see, and we see their body language and we see their facial expressions. And so there's this dual narrator aspect that's special to graphic literature. That's not in it's obviously in cinema, but in cinema you don't get the exposition, right? Like most movies, we aren't hearing the thoughts in the protagonist's head constantly.
Right.
Maybe for a weird movie and a weird scene, but definitely not for like a whole hour and a half. That would be weird. We'd be like, what is happening? It wouldn't work right. And so comics do this kind of magical thing, and that's what I love about it, man. And it's the stuff that sticks with you, right? And again, not to like goose you up too much, Jarred, but like, especially with all the devils are here, man, that very much that sticks with you for days. And it makes you miss people and like want to call people, and like think about like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a while. Like I should probably do that before they're beyond a memory, or before I can't talk to them anymore, right? And in today's world, that's something we think about a lot, with sickness and violence and just random weirdness, and for 2 years, a lot of us didn't leave our house, right? We didn't see anybody. And so you really hit home with that. And then I think you still do that in Crash and Troy. Like we have this like great buddy cop venture, right? And this really strong friendship, but you flex another muscle here, and that's your sense of humor. And people that have talked to you before and know you, like you're a funny dude, you're easy to talk to. But you really put that in the script for Crash and Troy. These two dudes they're very much like dude bros, right? But they're not. They walk that line of dude broing where you're like, this is the acceptable amount of dude bro that I can like handle and is actually funny, and I want to follow them and see the shenanigans they get into. And like, like who would have thought, like if we were in the middle of this conversation and you asked me something and I said, no, not now, I'm watching cat videos. Like you would be like, really? But like, if you do that in the middle of a heist in a prison, right? And that's one of the great scenes of the premiere issue of Crash and Troy is there's a part where he's an android and he can like, hack into the mainframes and stuff and do all that. And he does that while like watching Meryl Streep videos and cat videos. And like, where the fuck did you think of that? Because that wasn't an artist. That wasn't an artist saying like, I like this guy you made, Jarred, but I want him to be obsessed with Meryl Streep and cat videos like that. This was this was like, you were like, this is a character archetype that I want to put in the future, in space, in a weird instance. Like, where did you come up with these guys?
So Crash is very much me, right? Like 10 years ago, right? I guess you could even say 6 years ago. Um, he's very angry. He's grumpy. He's always easy to get into a fight. Things like that. And then, but Troy, right? Troy is a whole lot of things. Um,
He sure is.
Anybody who knows me knows that I have a degree in philosophy, and
Okay.
anybody who has had the misfortune of talking to me about philosophy knows that I hate this concept of transhumanism, right? And transhumanism, for those who don't know, is the philosophical idea that the next step of human evolution is a merging of sorts with technology, right? Like some transhumanists believe that you can take the human consciousness and stuff it into like a hard drive, essentially, right? Like it'll run like a software. I hate the idea for a number of reasons, besides the fact that I think it misses the entire concept of humanity. Because I think that part of being human is the temporality that we're alive. Like I think that if you make things permanent, you don't appreciate them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, time, I believe, time makes everything treasured. So I was like, okay, I'm going to make fun of transhumanism, right? Like that's what Troy is. That's what Troy starts off. That's why Troy's name is Troy, TR, transhumanism Troy. And I was like, I'm gonna make fun of it, and I'm gonna have this guy who is like the transhumanist ideal, and I'm gonna have him in a body, even though that doesn't make sense for transhumans. And I'm gonna make him obsessed with watching cat videos because that's what the internet is for. I'm gonna make him watch Netflix, and I was like, you know, what if I was Troy and I was this like transhumanist idea and I was watching cat videos, like what movies would he watch? And I kind of got into this deep rabbit hole, and before I was watching The Office, and he there's a scene where Michael comes in and he throws his coat at Pam, and she's like, oh, he's watching The Devil Wears Prada. And I was like, oh my god, like what if we had this guy obsessed with an actress that isn't even alive in his time, but he feels like is like the pinnacle of human beings, right? And Meryl Streep is like the pinnacle of human beings, right? Like she's super talented. And before I knew it, I was like watching Mamma Mia and The Devil Wears Prada, and I was like, no, I got to do this because there's like so much here for me to play with. So yeah, that is the origin of Troy. Is he's just Troy is a walking joke in and of himself, and by extension, right? He like Troy makes fun of me. He makes fun of my writing. You're going to see that a lot more in the next issues, um, where he's like making fun of. I'm using him to kind of poke fun at myself because I think it's funny, and yeah, I'm really glad. Like the humor part of it, right? Is like I like making people laugh. I've been kind of a I guess a clown for most of my life, and uh, I was like, man, when I was writing Crash and Troy, I had just finished this really super dark story that I tried to pitch. Um, and I was like, man, I want to do something that's way more lighthearted. And so that was kind of like where I was like, I'm gonna kind of play around with humor. I want to make some jokes. I want to have some fun. And yeah, it kind of ended up being Crash and Troy. Um, but yeah, I'm super psyched. I really I'm so glad the book's out. I hope people think it's funny. I think it's really really funny. Every time that I read the books on the PDFs, I mean I didn't read them for a while because of our obvious conflict in getting the book published.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was upset, and I was rereading them, and I'm like, fuck, this is funny. Like this is pretty funny.
David would say that because I think everybody knows Nottingham is the most
Bleak.
casual, lighthearted, like fucking medieval noir with a edge with a side of just discomfort. Like, I mean, I love it. Everything works, but it doesn't. It's not a smiling book, right?
My comic shop guy, he was like, I was telling him, I was like, man, have you seen, like, I was like, this is a friend of mine. This is one of the Mad Cave Talent Search winners, right? And I was like, he's doing this one and the book's fucking blowing up. And he goes, yeah. He was like, does this guy like ever smile? And I was like, yeah, he's a super cheery guy,
Yeah,
like,
he's so like happy and
yeah,
kind and
he's
funny.
such a pleasant guy. He saves all that shit for the dark stuff, but yeah, I am I'm really proud of Crash and Troy, really proud of the jokes. I'm really excited for issue 2 because we do lettering jokes, right? Like Buddy really pops off on the lettering. And I'm super psyched for that. I'm really excited for people to see Buddy being funny because like people, I think lettering gets underused for jokes, right?
Mhm.
And I'm a big fan of a book called Assassination where they definitely use lettering as like a joke. And I remember like emailing Buddy like what I wanted on the hey, like he had sent back a proof, and I was like, hey, on this part, could we do something like this? And he was like, yeah, like I can do that, and it just rules. He just rocks it out the park. It's really good.
Now, I know obviously this is one of those questions where I'm going to ask it, and it's not going to really be one that you can answer technically, but like, with the success of Crash and Troy, with the first issue doing as well as it did, and I think everybody's pretty sure it's sold. It's either sold out as of now, or it's gonna real quick, like within the next few days, and the stocks are going to be depleted, but like you obviously have faith in the other issues, and anybody who knows you knows like it's that for after that first issue, like we're all so excited about the second. Like there's no doubt, right, that these sequential issues are going to be great, even if you're kind of worried about it. It's just like when you hit the ball out of the park so far, you like it, you can't really shit the bed after that. Like it's just not, it almost becomes an impossibility, where like even if you fuck up a little bit, it's still going to be great. And I feel like that's how Crash and Troy is. And but like if you got the chance, like if these 4 issues did well and there was a clamoring for it, like would you want to go, would you want to do like another adventure with them? Maybe like, do you have other ideas for them maybe in the future, or you just, is this like you're like, I, like you don't want to stretch something out in 2.5 minutes, right? You don't you don't want to like when you lose like a crucial aspect of the show and you keep putting out episodes, you don't want to do that. But like if they gave you the shot, would you want to do a little more?
So Away Blue World has definitely expressed interest in more. Uh,
Nice.
Kyler and I have ideas for more. We're gonna, but like we uh, we went through a lot just to get this 4 issues
Mm-hmm.
out. Uh, and we're kind of just taking our victory lap.
Yeah.
And so right now, like I do, and my schedule is crazy right now. Like, and I'm grateful for that. Um, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm grateful for everybody who's given me a chance, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of work right now. Um, so we're going to kind of see through issue 3, and then we agreed to sit down and talk more seriously
Nice.
about it. Because I want people to see the book. I want them to read it. I want them to enjoy it. I want to enjoy my time having the book out and being able to talk about it pretty
Yeah.
freely. But yeah, Kyler and I have ideas. And if the whole team, I don't want to do this book with anybody else on the team.
Yeah.
And so if the whole team's ready to come back and do it some more, then we're going to come back, and if that's all of us what we all want to do, we're all happy with the story. That's what we're going to do. Um, if anybody's schedule doesn't line up, we're going to wait
Yeah.
because we're not going to do it with anybody else. This is the Crash and Troy group is a family. Like
Yeah. You got to
that.
keep the dream team together.
Yeah, yeah. We all made it work together. Um, so we're gonna wait. We're gonna see how everything plays out, and then yeah, we'll have a meeting and have a group chat and see where we want to go and what we want to do with it.
Now I know before there, I remember, like I said, the last time we talked, you were, in the well, just like you are now, you're in the midst of you're at the tail end of a Kickstarter campaign, but you were very of the mindset of like, I don't want to, you were like crowdfunding. Yeah. Duh. Like I don't want to fuck with publishers. Right. And I feel like, Wayne New World I've it sounds like they're treating you well. I know other people that have worked with them that said they've been like real joys to work with. Like, are they kind of Are they restoring some faith like into traditional direct market for you? Like, are you starting to feel better about, like you said, your schedule's busy. I'm sure you got other stuff that you can't talk about yet. And, for stuff for the future on top of like your own crowdfunding endeavors. But like, are you feeling better about coming back into that side of the world?
Yeah, I mean, Away Blue World's been amazing, right? Like I have no bad things to say about them. Um,
Nice.
they've been supportive. They supported us during the dark ages of Crash and Troy. Um, they loved the book as much as we do. And just like really briefly, like everybody at Way Blue World, Jesse, Hazel, uh, Paul, Tyler, everybody's been great. I love all of y'all. I have nothing but good things to say. I could publish. I could never publish another book with another publisher and be happy, um, because they've treated us well. They've treated us with respect. But it's time. I think it's time for the industry to respect me a little bit more,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like I've had 2 books in the direct market. Both of them have sold out in the
Hmm.
first issue. I've had 3 successful Kickstarter campaigns. I'm a 2019 Mad Cave Studios Town Search winner. I'm a 2022 DC Milestone Initiative. I've done like a dozen anthologies. I think that the industry needs to have a little bit more respect when it comes to me and my work. Um, and I'm not trying to say that because I'm not an egomaniac, right? Like I'm not. I don't think I'm fucking better than Tom King. I'm not out here on Twitter criticizing how the Big Two operates or anything like that. But
No,
but
but
it's
you
it's
put the time in, dude. Though you've
yeah,
and you've
it,
you've shown, like you said, you have a trail now that we can follow and pick up breadcrumbs that lead to great comics that have your name on the cover. You can't
yeah,
ignore that.
yeah. And I like that's my whole thing, right? Is like I feel like the industry needs to approach me differently, and I'm grateful that I have. There's been publishers in the last few months who have come out to me and who have said, "Hey, like we like X, Y, and Z. We like the way you do this. Do you want to talk? Do you want to have figure something out?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we'll get on a group call, and things have been going well. I'm a little bit more. I'm more open to getting in back into the traditional publishing than I was. I definitely have plans to do so, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what I'm chasing. Like I'm not interested in kissing anyone's ass or anything anymore. Like I work fucking hard, and I work
Yeah.
fucking hard not just at writing, but I work hard at selling my comics. I work hard to be a good collaborator, and I think I just need to be treated that way. And fortunately, I've been treated that way. Because like I don't need anybody to come up to me and act like they're doing me a favor. Like like some publishers have in the past, like, oh, I'm doing you a favor by publishing your book. Like, no, like we're working together. It's a
Mm.
team. It's not you're not doing me a solid, you know. Um, but yeah, I don't. I think that's kind of my litmus test now. I think I'm past the point of asking for scraps, and I think I'm at the point where I want to be treated a certain way, and if I'm not, then I'll just not do it. like
Yeah.
like I can Pat Shand this bitch and just do a bunch of comics on Kickstarter. Like I I just I like that's my whole thing right now is Wave Blue World has set the tone for how I expect to be treated from publishers, and that's where I'm gonna go from now on. Is like if you because the Wave Blue World's not a huge operation, so if they can come and be respectful and talk to me and treat me kind, then anybody else can. And on the flip side of that, if DC, who's one of the biggest companies in the industry, can treat me with respect, can treat me like really well. Obviously, no one's treating me like Dennis Cowan. I can't just show up in sweatpants and flip flops. But um, if DC can treat me with respect and kindness, and as somebody who has something to offer, then so can everybody else. And I don't think I'm asking for too much when I say that. And so that's where I'm at. Like um, I'm at the point where I'm like, if you're not going to treat me like a Wave Blue World, I don't have any interest in working with you, and I don't give a shit if that means that I'll put a book in stores. Like we sold out of Crash and Troy #1 in a day. We sold out of Dryfoot in 2 days. So like maybe start taking me a little bit more seriously than I have been over the last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think every great writer and great creator, there comes that time in your career where you have that, you know, whether you want to call it like come to Jesus moment or whatever, right? Where you're like, I am worth this, you know, like, you know, or the Stewart deal, like I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and God damn it, people buy my comic books, right? Like that's, but you know, I think that's like the sign of like the level up, right? When you like when you're coming up over that hill, right? And you're ready to make a deal with God and maybe swap places. Right? Oh wait, what? Oh, sorry, I was trying to, but you know, like, sorry, that fucking song won't ever leave my head, man. But you know, but when you get to that point, when you can say no, right? When you can say, I want to be treated this way or no, and like so many of us, definitely not with work. I mean, shit, man. There's a lot of us who don't know how to do that in our regular life or our romantic life or with friends when we let friends take advantage of us, right? So like that sign, like learning to tell people no and say I'm worth more than this is just like a mental level up in all things. And if you can apply that to your career, which so many people are scared to, right? Because so many people are like, well, if I say no, I may not get the opportunity again, right? And you're like, no, I will get the opportunity again. And like you said, if I don't have a book out in stores, I'll fucking crowdfund it. And you've shown that you can do that. So yeah, I'm happy for you, man. Like I agree with you. You deserve to be treated like way better than, and it sounds like that's starting to happen, but like what you went through the last couple of years fucking sucked, and it really was a bummer, and it sucks when good people get put through the ringer, right? And you know, like you know, I don't want to say like you're like Saint Teresa or anything, but I mean you're good people. Like you're a good voice in the indie community. You're a good voice for comic books. You're excited to put comic books out. You know, you don't act like you hate the world because DC's not publishing you or Marvel's not publishing you, or you know, like you have no, you're very calm, and even when you're angry you're calm and collected, and you put things out there for people to understand, but you treat your fans well, and you know, and you give your audience great things to read, and you're putting out great things to read, and so yes, like
Yeah.
you deserve that, dude. Like you deserve better podcast hosts. Like I don't I'm so glad like you agreed to talk to me and stuff, but like I mean, you know, you're like you're late night material, right? Like you're like when Tom King did the late night show, like that, there's no reason that can't be you. And I'm serious, man. Like you are at a point right now, everybody knows your fucking name, and that's cool. Like people know Jarred Luján's name, right? And
Maybe not how to pronounce it, but they know.
yeah, they know enough to find you on like Twitter or something, and like and people know your new comic books, right? Like we talked about earlier, like people know that Crash and Troy name. They know it from the drama, and now they know it from the new release, and everybody fucking loving it and everybody fucking buying it. That Crash and Troy has now surpassed that kind of negative vibe of like where it started as a bad deal, and now it's this like now it's this new shot, and it's this new great comic that we all need to buy, and like we mentioned earlier, pre-order. And so yeah, man, I'm excited for you, dude. Like I really think that, and I said this like last year, I said you were the writer to watch, and I still think that. Like I still think you're going to be a writer to watch for a long time, just because you tell good stories, and you're just a cool dude, man. You fucking buy Wu-Tang flip-flops and fucking chill and drink beers and eat gummies like the rest of us, you know. And it's like
Yeah,
like I appreciate that.
I never want anyone to think that, like, you know, um, that I'm asking for too much, because I don't feel like I ever am. I'm a very reasonable person. I consider myself a businessman in my own right, but like at the end of the day, right? Like I dealt with the shitty deal. I dealt with the shittiest deal, one of the shittiest deals in comics, and I just refuse to do that again. I I I just want to be treated with respect, and I've proven myself uh is the other thing, right? Like I've proven myself several times over that I can do the work, and I can do the work on time, and I
Yeah.
can do the work on a deadline, and I can do the work where, like, I see people on Twitter talking about how they can't sell books, but I'm out here moving it, and I'm not like trying to be shitty when I say that. And I know that maybe it sounds shitty, but I'm not. Like I just I take the marketing part of it really seriously because I want my stories to be read. I want it in people's hands. I take to me that feels like 30% of my gig.
Yeah.
But
Do you
I
think
just think
doing Kickstarter? Sorry,
no,
sorry, I
you're good.
didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you think Kickstarter like helps you with that mentality? Because that's how Kickstarter is, right? Is you have to put all that on your shoulders, right? You have to do your own press, you have to do your own PR, you have to do your own marketing. I mean, do you think that kind of strengthens that mentality of like, look, like you taught yourself how to do it, right? And
Yeah.
now when you have more opportunities, you're like, I have more to bring to the table than your traditional creatives.
I think part of it, yeah. But I think Kickstarter helped me build an audience on Twitter. It helped me build an audience on my newsletter. My newsletter is like 300 people strong, which I'm super grateful for. It's awesome. We could theoretically defend Sparta from Persians if we had to, and I think that's cool. But like the other thing, right, is I believe in being a student first, right? Like when I was doing Dryfoot for Mad Cave, I reached out to Manny Castellanos, who was their retail lead. He's now working over at Boom Studios. Great guy, handsome as hell, wonderful kisser. And I was like, hey, can you tell me like how I should approach comic shops? And because I wanna push books. And um they ran it through with me, and he went through and he was like, here's what you want to do. So like Melissa Masados, who wrote Heavy Metal Headbang,
Heavy metal headbang.
she's the
I
publisher.
almost said the headbanger. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I was close.
Yeah. She was working for Mad Cave as well as a publicist, and I was kind of like going back and forth and talking with her about, you know, what do you think is the best practices. I did that with DC. Like if you worked in publishing, if you worked in marketing, I was talking to them, getting their feedback on things that they thought was like a best demonstrated practice. um and so like I because I want to learn from everybody. I don't care if you're a pre-production, I don't care if you're at the printer, I don't care what you do. If you have some part of comics, I want to learn about it because I want to be better at my job. And
Yeah,
so and I think that's paid off for me, right? Like, I talk to comic shop owners all the time. And I'm like, how can I help you guys out? And sometimes they don't want my help, but my local guy is like, I have like 5 shops that I can always rely on for everything. My local guy, I'm always in his shop asking him questions like, hey, what does this do? How do you do this? What does your order screen look like? Hey, when's the cutoff? And like, when does that mean? And it's been really helpful. And I think that I've gained a lot of skills in doing that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I know I have to prove that I can write, and I can do it in a timely fashion, and I can do it well. And so every time that's like coming up, that's what I'm aiming for. And the marketing stuff, I think, is another dimension that I bring. But I want to always, first and foremost, like be a good writer and show that I can do that. And I think I'm doing that. I think I've done that over the last couple of years. But yeah, I'm just a fucking dude, Like I'm just a guy. Like I just I've got a wife, I've got a teenager. I just want to like hang out. I have a day job right now. Like I'm a really fucking I'm really normal. I was much I was so much more exciting back when I was a fuck up. Like but like it's just there's definitely like all the stuff that happened with Crash and Troy made me hate comics to the point that I wasn't reading them. I was planning on quitting, and now I'm like at the point where I'm going to not allow myself to be in that position, and I'm not going to let the business side of this thing take away my passion and my love for it, because I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm extremely passionate about what I do, and I don't want someone to derail that because they're shitty and they're shady and they're trying to exploit me. And I'm just not going to do that. Everybody, it needs to be way more of a partnership. It needs to be way more of respect and trust. And I always lead with respect. I grew up in the barrios of barrios. I've gotten the shit beat out of me for being disrespectful. I always lead with respect, and that needs to be reciprocated. I think, and I think that I think I've been slept on for a while, but I think everybody's starting to kind of wake up and realize that I have the goods, and I'm grateful. Um, so we'll see what happens over the next year. I'm already planning my next Kickstarter for next year.
Nice.
My goal is to keep doing that because I like doing it, and whenever I'm too busy to run a Kickstarter, then goddamn, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
what
a
I'm
good
going to do with
problem.
myself. Yeah,
That's a good problem. You mentioned I never really knew until like the last year or so, like when it starts, when that part of that indie comic hustle was, like you mentioned, reaching out to actual shops and talking to these, like, a comic book shop is a mom and pop type shop, right? It's a
Word.
small business. Money is sparse, right? And that's why you guys call, especially when you're an indie comic. Like, I don't have the new big Marvel, DC, or even maybe Image or Boom comic coming out, right? And so you talk to these people, and maybe you set up signings, or you send them advanced releases, and you say, this is why you need to order 30 or 40 or however many of my comic books. Like people are going to buy it, and I'm going to put that faith in you to put that order in. I never knew that was like a thing. And so, like, I really appreciate that hustle. Like the more I learn about this industry, it's a wild, weird place. There's a lot of bad shit. There's a lot of bad shit. So much could be done better, right? So many people could be treated better. But it's interesting how these ideas of like of marketing and ordering and a lot of stuff that you would think a writer wouldn't need to worry about, but in comic books you do. And like that's a big deal. Like shout out to the What Makes a Man crew, like Derek Wyford and Nate Taylor. Like they're doing that. They're putting out their second issue. They're doing the print on demand at Amazon, and they recently got a couple local shops to carry their book. And these are just fucking two guys that, like, Derek had a podcast like me and a YouTube channel, and he was like, I want to make a comic book, and he did, and he fucking did it, right? And that he realized that, like I said, he's got a shop that's gonna put his book on his shelves. And so yeah, I mean, it's just it's a weird world, and right now it's a good time, right, for indie comics, because if you really do want to make a comic, you can find, there's a lot of thirsty artists out there that need work, right, that are willing to work with new creatives. If you got the money, there's seasoned artists that are ready to work. Like, people need work, people need money. And so, like, if you want to make a comic, you can. It's not easy. Okay. Especially if you're like, kickstarting it or doing it yourself and doing this like grassroots, like, selling comics out of the trunk of your car outside of a comic convention because you couldn't afford a table. Right. I mean, like, these things happen though. And so, like, if you want to make comics, you can. And I feel like that's why your comics are better, or not. Well, they are better. They're better than a lot of what's out there. But like, you make really great comics. But I feel like you started from there, right? Like, what it's like to be hungry and to be scared and to not know if you're going to get to do this anymore. And now you're to the point of like, I have fucking standards, and you're going to meet them, and this is a character arc, right? This is a successful character arc in a narrative, but you've shown that now. And I think that's cool, man. And like I said, I'm excited for the Jarred Luján future, and whoever is lucky enough to get to work with you, and that you're lucky enough to get to work with in the future. I think you're the kind of cool dude that people are excited to work with too, and so, I think you got a lot of great stuff going for you, and I'm so glad that you took the hardships in stride. So many people I struggle with that, man. I struggle with that very, very much, like every day, where it's like I lose faith in my own writing, and sometimes I don't want to put in the extra effort, right? And sometimes I get in that mindset of like, nothing's going to happen. Why am I wasting my time? And it's inspiring to me to see someone who has those doubts and struggle with those doubts and overcome them and make something of themselves. So I mean, whatever you do in the future, man, your career has been really cool to watch, and I've always been excited to like talk to you, and it's been cool getting to know you over the last couple of years, and to see where you can go. And I really do think you deserve everything good coming your way. And like you mentioned earlier, you deserve to be treated, you know, differently and better in the community. And I'm glad that that's starting to happen, like truly.
Yeah, and like just on the note on hardships, right? Like, you know, I've been pretty open about, you know, I had a lot of issues growing up, and I was in a lot of trouble growing up. When I was 25, I had like my life fall apart for like the third time, and I kind of had to rebuild everything. And so we you know, hardships and everything, you've got to just keep going. And I know that that sucks, right? Like, and I'm telling you this as somebody who almost killed themselves, you know, back in 2016. Like, there's a lot of terrible shit out there. It's worse without people in it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
worse without you specifically in it, right? Like, you can change, you can be like, you know, what I had to do from 2016 is I had to completely change who I was, and I had to be the person that I wanted to be, and that took a lot of work, a lot of work in therapy. It took a lot of work in holding myself responsible. I'm very fortunate for my very patient wife, who started dating me like 6 or 7 months after I started therapy, and helped me, and was patient, and got me helped me get my shit together. But I believe that strongly, right, that we have to persevere, period. And I don't think that persevering necessarily means driving our heels into the dirt and not changing our position or not changing who we are. But I believe that it means that we have to survive it, we have to push through, we have to do something more. And so, like, you know, I'm not, when it comes to stuff like with what happened with Crash and Troy, like, I'm not gonna, you know, I still hold all solidarity with people like Jeremy Whitley, with people like Anthony Rudgazer, who are still struggling to get their books back, um, from bad people. But I believe strongly that everybody should have faith in themselves, and should be proud about that. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing that you should feel ashamed about when you believe in yourself, and you should demand that things change, and for the better. You know, obviously the crash in Troy Road was really hard, and a lot of people told us we weren't going to change anything. A lot of people told us that it was a lost cause, and look at where we're at now. You
Yeah.
know, we sold out that motherfucker in a day, and so I just really hope people like that. I want that. If I don't do anything else in comics but convince people that, you know, believing in yourself has an inherent value, uh, and that they should do it, then I can walk away pretty happy, because, you know, I've had a really weird, rough life. Um, but where I'm at now with my life, I'm very grateful for. You know, you know, my wife is like the best thing to ever happen to me, and you know, our teenager is crazy, but her too. You know, like, and like I'm just really grateful for everything that I have in my life, and I really hope that um, we do something. I really hope that's the defining point of my career, is that people see some barrio Mexican who was in trouble all the time growing up, and changed himself to better himself, and to hopefully better the lives of people around him, and do what he loved, right? I love writing. This is all I wanted to do. I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to do this when I was 14, right? And it just took a long time for me to kind of get to that point where I was like, I can do it, right? Um, because like I said, I mean, I wrote Crash and Troy in 2017, and then I had to rewrite it whenever we were going to publish it. But you know, I started that in 2017, so it's always about appreciating the journey, right? Even when it
Yeah.
sucks, it's kind of about appreciating it, and doing whatever you can, you know. But I really do hope that's like the defining characteristic of my career, is a dipshit Mexican from the barrio who became less of a dipshit Mexican.
I like your online presence in that regard too, because there's a lot of day. I know there's been like some shitty Mondays where like work is stressing me out, and I check Twitter, and you're like, all right, everybody, let's like, remember we're awesome and do the best we can today and listen to Wu-Tang and happy Monday. And I'm like, man, I needed that, right? Like it's after the first day after the weekend, right? Everybody's fucking bitching about whatever new Marvel thing just aired on Disney Plus, and like everybody's nasty about something, angry that they got to be at work, and it's just like negative, pissy, and then you get that one positive like reinforcement that you need, right? In a weird dark place where you didn't expect to find it.
It's the motherfucking Wu-Tang Clan. That's the shit, dude. Like, I keep telling everybody, like that's if you want to know the key to a happy life, it's the Wu-Tang Clan. If you want to know the secrets to the universe, it's the Wu-Tang Clan. Like you gotta just listen to it and find the secrets, you know?
Yeah. My cousins like got me into good music. I remember they're like, I'm obsessed with Tool, and they got me into Tool, and they got me into good hip hop, and they like showed me like Method Man and Redman and Wu-Tang, and like when ODB was still around and stuff, and like like I wouldn't have known about that. I was listening to like shitty like poppy MTV shit at the time, right? Like, and they like opened my eyes to this like different kind of music, whether it be like alternative and metal or whether it be hip hop. And they got me back when we used to buy CDs, right? Like when we had some extra, like that excitement of like going to Best Buy or Sam Goody or wherever. Like I'm showing my age saying Sam Goody, I'm sure, but like, like what, like, or fuck, even Best Buy now, right? But like, like walking through and like, picking out a new album, right? And like, and then like listening to it and like just having it change you. I did want to, I know you have an announcement, and so I got one more question for you, and then we'll get to your announcement. And then but for people, for Philistines out there who are not listening to the Wu-Tang Clan, what is, in your opinion, like what's the album to check out to like to sell you on it?
36 Chambers.
Okay.
The first album. The
All
first album is a holy book, like to me. Like I've heard that album probably over 1,000 times, and I still love it. It's a masterpiece.
It will be studied. It's like a historical entity now. We can say that because we're fucking old.
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah. Let's tell my wife is 2 years younger than me, and she was like, "Man, I'm really feeling my age today." And I was like, "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, you have no idea what waits for you,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, what is it? The other day, like people are starting to talk like horror stories and stuff. I did an interview with Frankie White the other night. I think I might drop that tomorrow. I got a few interviews recorded, right? And I got to like figure out now when to drop them, but I think I'm going to drop Frankie's tomorrow on the podcast. But anyways, like Frankie said like this August is okay to like the start of spooky season, right? Like we can start talking horror movies and get obsessed with it and like get ready for fall and stuff. And I was like, all right, I'll take that. And I was talking, one of my favorite horror movies is the sci-fi horror amalgamation of Event Horizon. And I love that fucking movie. And like less than a week ago, it had its 25-year anniversary, and I was like, "Fuck me running, no way." I was like 25 years. I was like, "That's insane." So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, like I get and like the fucking music we listen to now is like some of these albums are like going on 30 years old, and it's like shit. What happened? It's crazy. But yeah, I agree, man. Wu-Tang does make a lot of stuff better. So do great comics. And lucky for us, you're writing a few of those these days, and it's exciting. So yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna give you the floor because I know you had a big deal to announce, and I want everybody to hear about that.
Yeah. So during the dark times of Crash and Troy, a particularly bad story came out regarding a writer by the name of Gordon McLean. And I'm not going to go into the details of what happened to Gordon. There's a lot of really well written pieces that you could find on the internet, and you should go and you should find those and you should look them up so that you can understand it. But the long story short is that Gordon is believed over something that happened with his comic. It is believed that Gordon committed suicide. So when I was fighting for Crash and Troy, I committed to and as our whole team that part of the proceeds of what we made would be going to the Scottish Mental Health Fund, which in Gordon's name, and all of us are still committed to that. But as I like to do, I like to open these things up so to get more people help because mental health is something that's I take very seriously. The story of Gordon is really tragic, and we want to make sure that people don't forget what happened to him, and we want to make sure people know that there's help available. So this is a Crash and Troy black and white inks only variant of Kyler's cover. Uh, Only 100 of these exist. And they're only available through a Wave Blue World, right? And me and Kyler, we each got some. So I'm giving one of them to my mother, and this is the other one that I don't have any use for. So uh, we're going to hold a raffle where if you donate money to the Scottish Mental Health Fund, you'll get entered into a chance to win this signed by me, mailed to you for no, I'm not going to charge you shipping or anything like that. I'm not an asshole. So um, you're going to find details about that on my Twitter account next week. I'm going to plan it all out. We're going to have a good time frame. I'm probably going to wait until after the Kickstarter is over, if I'm being super honest, because I already have enough stuff to promote. Um, so just keep an eye out, and I'll sign it for you. I'll mail it out to you in nice. I'm going to bag it and board it. But again, only 100 exist. All of Crash and Troy is pretty much gone at this point. So if you're a fan of the book, if you're a fan of me, if you're a fan of any of that stuff, please keep an eye out and let's raise some money so that we can help people in Scotland in Gordon's honor and Gordon's name. And just keep an eye out, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it together. It's gonna be fucking dope, and we're going to make sure that people don't forget what happened to Gordon, and we're going to make sure people know that there is help for them available.
That is very cool. That is a solid thing to do. Yeah, it's mental health is no joke. You know, a lot of us, you know, not everybody can wake up in a good mood. Not everybody can go to bed in a good mood, and not everybody can come back from a bad mood, right? You know, like a lot of people are real good at bouncing back, or maybe it'll even take you a couple days, you know, but you can come back from it. And there are so many people that can't, and that struggle silently and don't tell anybody until it's too late. And I really I think that's so cool of you to do. And I will anything I can do to help you promote that when it goes down, let me know. I would be I'd be happy to help, whether it's a retweet or a press release or anything. I think that's awesome. And again, I think you're awesome, Jarred. I don't know if I got that across tonight or not, but I just think you're a pretty cool motherfucker, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you spending part of your Saturday night with me and our viewers, and I really appreciate the comics you got coming out, and I'm excited for your future endeavors. And no one deserves it more, man, for real. Like you had a Crash and Troy had an uphill battle, and like you said earlier, you know, when people told you to let it go, you didn't, right? You hung on to that cliff's edge and you pulled yourself up over the edge, and now your fight and your struggle is paying off. And I think that's a good image for not just the indie comic scene, but like anybody. Like we forget that hard work and sacrifice does pay off a lot, right? A lot of people don't notice that. There's so many people that have shit given to them, and good things happen to bad people, and it gets hard, right? And so it's nice to see that when a struggle pays off. So I appreciate you know, being part of this community, you know, striving to make more stories for us to read, and digging your heels in, man. Like I'm so glad you did. And I'm glad to see your future writing career hopefully pay off and spin out from that. So anyways, you're just awesome. And that's all I got to say. I've kept you for, almost an hour and 40 minutes now. We've been yakking and obviously we got the twin blades on Kickstarter. Crash and Troy sold out. You can buy them on eBay. If I guess now you waited too long, suckers. But you 2, 3, and 4 aren't out yet. So maybe pre-order those, and maybe a second print of number 1 will happen. Who knows? We can all cross our fingers and hope. But I would definitely pre-order the next issues, because you don't want to miss out on this book. It's good. It's real fucking good. Jarred, anything else? Well, I guess, where do we find you? Where do you hide online and send out these promotional Wu-Tang messages and Happy Monday, slogans, and where do we keep track of you for all your future endeavors?
You can find me at Jarred Luján on Twitter and Instagram. It's spelled just like that, but together. I didn't put the accent on the A in my name because Twitter doesn't recognize Spanish as a real language. You can also go to my website, lujanwrites.com. Appreciate you, Johnny. You can go to lujanwrites.com. Again, no accent on the A because it doesn't recognize Spanish as a language. And sign up for my newsletter. Like, if you go to my Twitter and you're like, this guy's too fucking much, I can't deal with this shit. But you want to see what I have to say once a month. That's you can go to my newsletter. I'm writing, the next newsletter is going out next week. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a really personal piece about Crash and Troy and overcoming obstacles. But most importantly, right? I just want all of y'all watching this. I thank you for everybody's support, especially you, Blake, for having me. I'm thankful for everybody who supported us through the Crash and Troy's struggle. I appreciate everybody who went and bought the book. I'm so fucking grateful. I can't express it, the response that we had, because not only does it show that our story matters, it shows that people respect that comic creators matter and how they're treated matters. And I'm so fucking grateful. I could never say it enough times, but most importantly, right? I want everybody watching this, and I don't care if it's live. I don't give a fuck if it's the replay that you're catching it. I want you to go, and I want you to believe in yourself, and I want you to remember that, right? That's the message. That's the only thing that matters, is to have faith in yourself and work towards not just bettering yourself, because sometimes that's not the problem, but bettering the world around you. And making it a better place for everybody, because that's what matters more than anything.
I totally believe that. And David Hazan just showed that he's more famous than all of us in one swell comment. Sorry, the sitcom queen Harley Quinn couldn't say her name right, bud. She never even heard of Blake Morgan. I guess.
It was that's a real casual way to drop that. Yeah. That lady on Big Bang Theory couldn't pronounce my name on Jeopardy.
Oh man, everybody who tuned in live tonight, thank you so much.
God damn that guy.
Oh wait, I guess it wasn't Harley Quinn. It was was it Daria? Daria's pretty famous too, or was it the other one? That's what sucks about the delay in these comments. Now we got to sit here for 5 minutes, wait for David to respond.
We will have this mystery solved. Who has wronged you, David?
Yeah, listeners, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday night with me, David. Same to you, man. Thanks for hanging out. This was cool. This was a first for me. We combined the podcast and the live show. Oh, here we go. It's all right.
I'll never forgive her.
Yeah. That she's done. David. She's through in this town. I'll tell you that much. I'm gonna make some calls when we get off this.
Yeah, just like the show Joey, the spinoff of Friends, she is canceled.
She's done. You're out of here, lady. Yeah. Oh man, but yeah, this was super fun. Shit, I may do more of these in the future. I don't know. Like, I don't have to mess with editing anything. We just put it out there, and then in a week or so, like, you know what I'll probably do? I'll probably wait till you do the announcement for your contest, and I'll just rip the audio and re-release it as a podcast, and like not put any work into it whatsoever. Just put that intro outro music on it and publish it. Bam,
Hell
2 for
yeah.
1. But yeah, so yeah, Jarred, I love Crash and Troy. I'm super excited for the new Twin Blades. I'm here for it, man. And thank you. Like, again, thank you for just being a good person in the community to look up to. Thank you for writing good comics, and thank you for coming back to my show. Like that, you were here and you left and you came back. So that's I must mean I'm doing something right, I guess. I don't know.
Like a forlorn ex. I'm back.
All right, everybody, keep an eye. Go follow Jarred. Go subscribe to his newsletter. He really does have an awesome newsletter. It's good to read. He doesn't like send a million a week. It's manageable. It's chill, and it's a good way to keep track of his projects. Everybody should follow him to keep track of this Crash and Troy giveaway, because a 1 in 100 variant is no joke. But hey, when a comic's sold out, right? That's that may be some of your only chances to get this, or unless you want to like pay that eBay tax, or sign a deal with the devil, or whatever you got to do to get it. I support it. It's worth it. The Crash and Troy is worth it.
As somebody who wrote a story about people that made a deal with the devil, I think donating to mental health is a better way.
Yeah, definitely. I would go that route myself. Everybody, thank you so much. Make sure to follow Jarred on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to his Substack, or not a Substack. I don't know if it's a Substack or not. Subscribe to his newsletter.
Fucking Substack. Fuck
Substack. Share, like, subscribe. I would love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. We do a lot of these interviews, and I love hyping up indie books. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just boring, but it makes me excited. I dig it. And I love getting to talk to these talented individuals. I think it's fun. And obviously other people think it's fun because they keep listening to me. So anyways, do everything. Buy Crash and Troy, subscribe, back all his Kickstarters, hang out online, come back for the next show. We appreciate you. We both do. I appreciate my audience. Jarred appreciates you buying his comics and pre-ordering. Please, by the way, please pre-order comics. Rewind the show and listen to the first 10 minutes. and in between us talking about how wonderful David Hazan is, like, just remember to pre-order your fucking comic books.
If you hear us talking about how great David is, you've gone too far.
All right, I'm gonna cut this out. Everybody, remember, be kind to each other, read tons of comics, listen to Wu-Tang, love more, hate less, read comics, all that good deals. We're here for you. And Jarred's gonna keep writing cool comics. Like, that's it. It's done. You have no choice. You have to now.
It's a hostage situation.
Yeah, now. I'm not letting you go till you put out a new series. Oh man, well, thank you so much, Jarred. We appreciate you, and that's a wrap, folks.